People who are to blame are the people who would not vote yes.
This bill didn't pass because it didn't deal with the most fundamental flaw in Obamacare.
And I can tell you, no one has been more self-critiquing than me.
This conversation should be more about the people whose lives are going to be impacted by our decisions on their health care. We did not have enough of a substantive discussion.
Never once have I seen him blame Paul Ryan.
But ultimately, I don't think you can lay the defeat of this bill last week on any single faction in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, and I think there's probably plenty of blame to go around.
And the blame game is on. Lots of finger pointing. Following the breakdown of the Republicans' health care bill, President Trump first pointed the finger at Democrats. Now he's pointing the finger at conservative groups. This is what he tweeted this morning. Democrats are smiling in D.C. that the Freedom Caucus, with the help of Club for Growth and Heritage, have saved Planned Parenthood and Obamacare. Let's discuss. Joining me now, Robert Zimmerman, the Democratic strategist and Democratic National Committee man, and Harlan Hill, a political consultant who supported Senator Bernie Sanders and then Donald Trump in the election. So, Harlan, who needs to own this?
Well, I think Ryan owns it. And that's why yesterday I came here and I said that Ryan should be repealed and replaced, that Donald Trump should ask for his resignation. Now, he can't force him to do that because there's a separation between these two branches.
Guy, right?
But he owned this. This was Ryan's bill. This was Ryan Care. And he couldn't get his caucus in line. He couldn't come up with a bill that could reasonably pass, and it failed, and it blew up in his face.
You know, Anna, the problem in the House of Representatives is that the right hand doesn't know what the alt-right hand is doing. So you have these divisions, and you have everyone trying to run for cover. But at the end of the day, this issue belongs with President Trump. Just for put it in perspective, he spent 17 days working on his Trump Care legislation, which he now calls Ryan Care, by the way. Yet, in fact, if you look at history, I think it was 166 days were spent by President Obama pushing his program through. When President Bush did Medicare expansion, it was like 150 days. The point is, there was, even according to Republican members of Congress, the president didn't show a mastery of the details, didn't really lead the country, try to educate them on the issue. And quite frankly, I think just as substantially, when you have Republican members of Congress saying his legislation was a giveaway to the super rich in our country, when you've got Republican members of Congress like Charlie Dent saying that, you know there's a problem.
In terms of execution, I hear what you're saying, that this was really a policy that was developed by Ryan, and he had more time to work on this as he's been in the House of Representatives. But this was also a big, huge promise that the president made on the campaign trail over and over and over again. Yeah. I mean, should he have been more involved in the policy piece?
Well, look, I think this is his first real legislative attempt coming out the gate. He learned a lot from this, and this doesn't preclude him from passing health care reform in the coming months or years. So this was our first shot at it. He learned a lot. You know, he doesn't have any experience actually working on the Hill to pass bills. That was actually a plus, I believe.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work, Harlan. When a president cannot make excuses. When a president says, "I'm going to give you on," when the president says, when he says, "I'm going to give you on day one better health insurance at a lower price,"
he said on day one, "I'm going to go to Congress and I'm going to ask them to send me a bill that will improve."
Superior, and he said better health insurance at a cheaper price.
So when we talk about winners and losers in all of this, some have said that Freedom Caucus has been emboldened because now they have some power. They were able to stop this bill from moving forward because they didn't get exactly what they wanted. But this is kind of an interesting development that happened today. Ted Poe, he is a representative who was on the Freedom Caucus. He resigned from that caucus. Let me read you part of his statement when he did this. He says, "Saying no is easy. Leading is hard. But that is what we were elected to do. Leaving this caucus will allow me to be a more effective member of Congress and advocate for the people of Texas. It is time to lead." So, Robert, my question to you is, do Democrats welcome this? And should Democrats perhaps be doing the same and putting out an olive branch?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I think Senator Schumer and Senator Sanders actually did this today in their comments. Senator Sanders, when he was on State of the Union, we talked about there are issues that, in fact, they can work with the Republicans and the president on. The president's talked about making drug care more affordable. That's an opportunity to work together. There's a need to stabilize the market. There's a need to create more opportunities for small businesses to buy in. But if the president's strategy is just to repeal Obamacare, if his goal is to remove 24 million people from health insurance, that's a deal breaker. That's not going to work.
Do you see areas to compromise?
Let's be honest. There's not political will on either side of the aisle to repeal or replace or to modify Obamacare. There are real systemic problems with Obamacare that have led to higher premiums that the American people cannot afford, and it's a burden on small business. I don't believe that there's political will to actually get this done.
That's the job of a president, though.
Because I believe that the Democratic Party is hell-bent on defeating Donald Trump. And so that means that there will not be compromise. So you do have fringe leaders, somebody like Bernie Sanders standing up and he's saying that we can find commonality. That's pure political posturing.
Wait a minute, you were a fan of Bernie Sanders.
But it is pure political posturing. I mean, we saw the same thing with other leading Senate Democrats as soon as President Donald Trump was inaugurated, saying that they were willing to come across the aisle and work with him.
And what a president should do is call the Democrats' bluff, invite them into the Oval Office, talk with them about how we're going to make drug care more affordable, take off the table the idea of just repealing Obamacare and throwing people off the Medicaid expansion. That's what a president should do. Try to find ways to bring people together. You've seen that bipartisanly done before in our history. It's not unique.
So by the way, he's going to have a chance on tax reform. He says that's his next spot. But wait a minute, just a second. Let me finish my thought here, because on tax reform, that is a big issue that affects a lot of people. He has another chance, Harlan. Yeah. How is he going to reach out to the different sides and effectively get this fixed?
Well, I mean, look, the burden is also on Democrats. They could write legislation and propose it. And that could be part of the process here. And we haven't seen that. It has
happened.
We have not seen that. We saw that actually, in the previous administration where you had Republicans proposing legislation when President Obama was in the White House. And I would like to see Democrats do the same thing.
What kind of legislation do you see Democrats proposing that the president would agree to go along with?
Let's look at something like infrastructure spending. There's actually a lot of commonality between the two parties in terms of what we both recognize the problem. There are too many potholes. Our infrastructure is crumbling. We both want to spend about $1 trillion on this. The only question is, how do we fund it? We should be able to come to the table. Both parties should be writing bills, and they're not doing it.
Excuse me. Actually, in fact, President Trump does have a piece of legislation he's been advocating. The Senate, under Senator Schumer's leadership, does have a piece of legislation, the infrastructure bank proposal, they've been advocating for years. It's up to the president to then bring the parties together. This is what Bill Clinton did. This is what was done by George Herbert Walker Bush, by Ronald Reagan. This is part of our country's history. Where we lose that opportunity is when the president overpromises and then creates false assumptions. And if you think this was easy, wait till he tries to get Mexico to pay for the wall.
So do you think he should be attacking infrastructure before tax reform?
I think realistically the president has to make infrastructure where there's a chance to build a common ground. I think he has an opportunity there and he should be taking advantage of it.
I do. I mean, look, we're just 65 days into this administration. It's still very much early days. So give him a little bit of time. He's just getting his sea legs here, and he's already accomplished so much through executive action. And so give him a little bit of time, and I believe that we're going to successfully navigate.
I agree with Douglas Brinkley. This is the worst first 100 days of any presidency in history,
with the exception of
William Harrison, who died 23 days into office from pneumonia.
Please,
so
it's outrageous.
At least it's better than that. But the reality here is, but the reality here is, it's a first 100 days, and if the president doesn't understand that you're not going to lead by attacks, by hateful tweets, by lying, by misinformation. If he's going to bring people together, then he's got an opportunity to build, because the country wants infrastructure reform. The country wants tax reform. He's got the goodwill of the country on those issues.
That's nice.
I'll give you the last word. We
That's
got to go.
hyperbole, but he killed TPP, which would have gutted the American middle class, sent more jobs abroad. He's building these pipelines between Keystone and the Dakota Access Pipeline. No, I mean, he's bringing 45,000 jobs just through Exxon and over a $20 billion investment. The average pay for those permanent jobs is over $100,000 a year. This was the problem with the Obama administration. Yeah, you created a lot of jobs, but they pay almost nothing. He's creating high-quality jobs in parts of the country that we really need.
His budget that he's proposed, Harlan, though, would decrease jobs in areas like the EPA, where he has proposed slashing thousands of positions.
Not only that, it also slashes funds for job training programs, for education across the board. Let's understand, the problem with the president's budget is that it shows it shows his administration versus his rhetoric. The dangers of this White House is the overpromising that he creates, and that's why we're not going to see Mexico pay for the wall. And so what he's proposing is slashing funds for border security, for airport and railroad security, to pay for that wall.
I hope he accomplishes a lot, because what's good for America is to accomplish a number of things, especially jobs, as you point out. Harlan Hale, Robert Zimmerman, our thanks to both of you. Great to have you on. Still to come, healthcare down. Next up, the vote for the president's pick for Supreme Court, and the Dems